Teachers of Reddit, what's the funniest thing you've heard a student say that you unfortunately had to punish them for? Teaching a class of high school seniors. They were pee about something and wouldn't let me get a word in. Worst butthole in the class raises his hand for probably the first time in his life, so I call on him. He says, "Thank you, Mr. L. I don't know what you're trying to tell us, but I think everyone needs to shut the frick up so you can talk." Took everything in my power not to crack up. I didn't get him in trouble. He won a place in my heart that day. Seeing students produce quality work that even they didn't know they were capable of is hugely gratifying, and my absolute favorite thing about being a teacher. Kids telling their classmates to shut the frick up so I can teach is a close second though. This teacher has had 4 last names because of remarrying in the last 5 to 6 years. An 11-year-old student was wondering why this teacher has had so many names. 11 years old, Mrs. Have you been married before? Teacher, yes. 11 years old, oh, so you're a hoe? The kid honestly didn't mean it to be mean. He just thought that is what you call someone who has been married a few times. Luckily the teacher didn't take offense to it and said, well, he isn't wrong. However, his homeroom teacher wasn't as forgiving. I went through this exact thing. A teacher started off with my class married, then got divorced and went back to her maiden name for a year, then married another teacher and took his name. This was all before 7th grade. We were so confused. I worked at an alternative ed school for kids who were expelled from their old schools. I taught a class of 8th grade boys, so I have tons of great stories. My favorite was one day I was reading out loud from the newspaper that Old Country Buffet was closing down, and one of my students said, "Are you freaking kidding me?" while simultaneously punching a hole in the window. I laughed so hard but also had to give him detention and fill out a ton of paperwork. These kids were no joke. I had a full-time therapist in my room with me because it was such a liability to be alone with them. The kids had daily therapy sessions to help them deal with their anger issues, trauma, etc. Most of my students were affiliated with gangs and got in a lot of trouble for drug-related crimes. About half my kids were in detention centers before coming to my classroom, and a lot of them had ankle monitors. Old Country Buffet kid was an especially large 14-year-old. His file said he got expelled from his old school because he was very into the Twilight series and some kids made fun of him for it, so he beat the crap out of them. He did need stitches after the window incident. More please. I am a teacher, but the funniest punishment I know of was not for one of my students, it was for my son. My son is the quietest kid I have ever met. He gets extremely anxious. When he was 4, his grandfather died unexpectedly and he got even quieter. For years, he did not generally talk with schoolmates or ever ask adults, besides me, for help. I had to explain this to his new teachers every year. By the time he was 8, it was routine to go to parent-teacher conferences and have teachers share he was a good student, but they wished he would talk more. I went to a conference with his 2nd grade teacher and she said, "I need to tell you, your son got in trouble for talking to friends in class today." I asked him to stop and he still disrupted the class, so I had to put his name on the board. "When you get home, will you tell him how proud I am of him and give him a high five?" We had one of the best times ever at family dinner that night. This was so endearing to hear. Thank you for that. This is more of something a student did. About a month ago I hear a kid yelling, "My eyes are burning." I ask him what's wrong and he says that another kid sprayed him with something. I go to that kid and he hands me a bottle of Warhead spray candy and says it's just water. When I told him that water doesn't burn eyes, he replies with, "Well, I did put salt in it." I once had a 7th grader come into class after lunch urgently telling me that she needed to go to the nurse. Her eyes were watering, and they were red and puffy. Turns out that she'd read online somewhere that you can get high by putting Vicks directly on your eyeballs. I had recess duty a few years ago. A kindergarten girl came running over with another girl right after her and said she called me the B word. When I asked the second student if she called the first student the B word, she turned to the first one and said, "Mother doesn't start with a B." I managed to turn my laugh into a cough. But yeah, no more recess for her that day. I don't think the first girl even realized mother was a swear, so she was focused on the word B. The child is clearly gifted if she knows that mother doesn't start with B at that age. My mom was an elementary teacher and always had a few good ones to share. One that stands out in my head is a story about a bus ride on a field trip. Her second grade students started playing some music. At one point, they started singing along and my mom got really excited because they were spelling. Their spelling. That's so great. It took her a moment to realize what they were spelling. An entire bus filled with 7 and 8-year-olds was rolling down the road with about 40 little voices singing, "'Cause I'm a motherfucking P.I.M.P." That hilarious mental image is one that I can't unsee, and I don't want to unsee it. I actually didn't punish this kid though I was supposed to, but I couldn't stop laughing. So, whenever my high schoolers whine about something I say into every life a little rain must fall, which is my polite and deliberately annoying way of saying suck it up. By the end of the year, they're so used to it that all I have to do is say into every life, and they roll their eyes and grumble, but at least they stop complaining. Well, one day a kid comes in my room and he's already complaining about something that hasn't even happened yet. So I say into every life, and he says a little rain must fall. I know, but Mrs. Danikali up. It's a FNG thunderstorm right now. I got pages to this thread, so here we go. I teach in a rural school district in Wisconsin. The kid in question was a self-proclaimed redneck and proud of it. He also never swore in front of me, because it was impolite. I overheard him sometimes, but he was careful to watch his language around me. One day, he tries to sell me sunglasses for a fundraiser, but I wasn't interested. I have prescription sunglasses, so I had no interest in putting cheap sunglasses over my regular glasses. He kept pressing me, telling me that if I wore my sunglasses to a music festival that happens not too far from us, the guys would be all over me. Upon informing him that I was engaged at the time, the first words out of his mouth were, "I ain't seen a ring yet that can plug a hole." There was a pause, then a look of horror crossed his face. Oh my god, I just said that to a teacher. He covered his head and said to me in this quiet, pleading voice, "Please don't tell my mom." I didn't. I had to have a talk with him and documented it in our system as a minor infraction for inappropriate language, but never called his mom or sought punishment. His reaction was worth it. Not the teacher, but back when I was in high school I witnessed a guy basically break the teacher. We were all seniors in a government class, and the teacher was the kind who wore a suit and tie to class. Well spoken, wanted his students to succeed, put up with zero bulls. Anyway, we were all talking before class began, and as the final bell rang and we all started to go quiet, this random guy practically shouted and the dude stuck his foot in her pee. Now she's got athletes see the entire class lost their crap, and the poor teacher had this look on his face like he didn't know whether to double over in laughter or yell at the kid. He chose to quietly scold the kid while choking back laughs. Taught speech, public speaking, class. While giving an informational speech on Vikings, students got to choose their own topic. An 11th grade student gave the following transition. When it came to raiding coastal cities, the Vikings, much like an overeager or inexperienced lover, came quickly and unexpectedly. It was delivered with the perfect comedic timing, a total deadpan tone, and impeccable poise. I braced myself immediately to keep from laughing and felt every student eye turn to me in dead silence. It was a very conservative school and students were looking to me to see if it was alright to laugh. I broke out in a sweat trying to hold back, but was successful. I had to dock the student 10% for inappropriate language, but considering he still got an 85% or so, we both agreed it was worth it. 7th grader, Mr. Whatever. Do you know what No Nut November is? His mom was an aide at the school, so I told her rather than writing him up or anything. He's mostly a really great kid, and it was during an art class that I was covering where the teacher left fun activities, which led to a pretty informal atmosphere. I didn't think any kind of serious punishment was necessary, and I thought she'd understand better than an administrator. After telling mom what he said, I subsequently had to explain to her what No Nut November is. She told me that if he asks me about it again, I'm supposed to ask him if he can even go 24 hours without nutting, which was slightly hilarious but mostly horrifying. Not something to be punished for, but I thought this was weird enough to share. There are these two students in my school who are black twins. Every morning when they see me before advisory, one says, "Mr. Whatever, you're not black." And then the other follows up with, Mr. Whatever, you're actually black. For the record, I am Asian. Considering he's a 7th grader, he probably can't. No, he'd implode. Not a teacher, wayward parent of an equally wayward 4-year-old. I received a call from the VP of my daughter's school one day while I was at work. I could tell the VP was holding back her laughter, but she tried to remain professional. Hello, your daughter acted out in class today. The children were switching from coloring to reading at the carpet. She threw her crayons down and pointedly said to the teacher, "Are you freaking kidding me?" My knee-jerk reaction was, "Damn it. Are you freaking kidding me?" It is clear where she learned this from. My second thought was, dang. I have a kid in junior kindergarten that knows how to use that phrase in a correct form. The following year, the VP is no longer at the school. We attend similar social group and talk often. She loves to tell me that making that phone call was one of the funniest calls she has had to make as an educator. That's freaking incredible. Not a teacher, but I distinctly remember the last 30 seconds of my 7th grade math class just days before school was out for that summer. Had a pretty fun math teacher who always kept his classroom purely professional. He even wore a different tie every single day. This was the only time I've ever seen him with such a hilarious "oh crap I fell for it" grin. I was a part of the teacher's help session class comprised of a mere 5 students. It was the last period of the day. We had finished all of the lessons for the class period and were all waiting for the bell. The teacher and a kid, let's call him Johnny, who was quite notorious for making borderline inappropriate jokes, somehow ended up on the topic of how old school teachers used to punish misbehaving kids with a paddle or yardstick. The teacher pulled out a yardstick and abruptly slammed it down on the corner of his desk, which made quite a loud whipping sound as a demonstration. And Johnny, thinking on his toes, screams out a stereotypical P-star level moan followed by "just like that baby." Of course this made everybody begin laughing hysterically, and I couldn't help but notice the teacher, stunned and trying his hardest not to crack up, staring at Johnny somewhere in between sending him to the principal's office and "I can't believe you've done this" expression. The moment didn't last long as the bell rang not 5 seconds after. On the way out I peered back at the teacher, now sitting down at his desk, still wondering how he fell for something of this level. This is gold. I was explaining what Die Hard meant to a class in relation to sports. This was a big rugby union school in Sydney. Explained that we were really passionate and that if our team won we'd be happy or if they lost we would be sad. Kid asks, "What team do you follow?" So I answer, "the Waratahs. I do love them, but their 2017 season was awful." Without skipping a beat the kid turns around and just goes, "You must be pretty freaking miserable then sir." As a teacher I had to tell him off. Internally though I appreciated the comment and how quickly he came up with it. Two come to mind. 2 girls were working on an assignment and were having disagreement about an answer. One ended up just looking the other dead in the eye and slowly pushed all her stuff on the floor exactly like a cat would when they are being the buttholes they are. The other girl doesn't break eye contact and says, "You're stinky bee, you know that?" The other one was a girl walking to the front of the class and so was this other, larger student. Well, he wasn't going as fast as she would have appreciated, so she decided to yell out, "Move it fat butt," which had to be dealt with. But it was just oddly funny to hear that insult coming from that group of kids. I was working in Korea at what was basically a tutoring center with a group of 4-year-old ESL students. We played a lot of games to help develop crosstalk and general vocabulary. One girl would always win, and I do mean always, no matter what we were playing. On this particular day, one of the boys had decided he'd had enough. He was going to do whatever it took to win, and the little guy played his heart out. We finish the game, go fish, and the girl counts up her pairs and comes up with 5, I think. Not super important. I turn to the boy, "Me. So, how many do you have?" He turns his attention to counting. Him. 1, 2, 3, frick, 4. My eyes went wide and I had to stifle laughter because everything about this moment was just perfect. The defeated tone, the sigh when he realized what was going to happen, and the eventually acceptance of yet another defeat. I didn't really punish him, just a quick "don't say that" since there was no one else in the room. A 4th grader decided to change their password on a typing program we use, and proceeded to forget what she set her password to. I logged in, and was able to see the password was butthole. Holy crap. I could barely keep a straight face while reading her the riot act and still joke about this one with her mom. Bad security on the part of the program. Passwords shouldn't be stored in plain text. On the other hand, your student chose a good password, if a bit inappropriate. 4 random words that are easy to remember. They forgot in this case. Whoops is better than a 8-character mix of upper and lowercase, symbols, and numbers. Middle of chemistry class. Girl 1, you're W. Girl 2, at least I'm getting some. I would have had to punish them, but moments after that they started fighting. The situation escalated to become the principal's responsibility. Apparently, the so-called W was sleeping with the other girl's sister's boyfriend. The sisters, the other girl, and the cheating boyfriend were all in that chemistry class. Same class. Later that year, a kid was sitting in the front row of class and talking in the middle of class. I stopped talking and just looked at him. He kept talking, and kept talking louder, about whatever random stuff. The whole class was starting at him. I just looked at him, thinking I should probably give him detention or something, but hasn't really decided. He was still talking, and then he looked me in the eye and declared, "You're freaking B." His whole face fell. He knew he had just gone too far. Just go to the office. I tiredly muttered. Way back when, I saw this kid furiously copying someone's homework as I was checking it around the room. I kept watching. Bless him. He was copying as fast his little, plump hand would allow. I walked by him, giving him a disapproving look. He looked up and said, "What? It's done." I didn't say anything. I just kept walking to the front of my room. By that time, said child had slowly raised a book in front of his face. Me. I am so glad most of us have our work completed. Kid, raise his book higher. Me. Yes, I am really impressed at some of you. Kid, okay. Throwing down book. I am a little fat kid. WHO tells lies. I didn't do my homework. Me. You don't say. I tried so hard not to laugh, but the whole class and I fell to pieces. I ended up not taking points away because he made me laugh so hard with his honesty. LOL, what grade level was this? That kid would have won me over right then and there. That's just gold. My teacher didn't punish me, but he should have, and laughed pretty hard. When I was a senior in high school, I went to the bathroom to pee. After doing my thing, I turned around and saw the biggest freaking cockroach I've ever seen. I didn't know they got that big. I screamed so loud and tried to run around the dong roach. When I got out of the bathroom, I almost ran into my very conservative, very formal theater teacher. Guy was a Mormon BTW, and he asked me what happened, and out of shock I just yelled, "There's a big butt freaking cockroach in there." He was just stunned, then started laughing as I hid behind him. For context, I was a tiny wimp of a girl, and for some reason bugs freak me out, especially big ones. I also sound like a 10-year-old and had never cussed around my teacher before, so he was probably in all sorts of what the frick did I just watch at that moment. My friend is a school counselor and does a funny kid Friday. My favorite of hers was 2 kids had been fighting, so the teacher split them up. When she asked the kid who was sent to her why he kept picking fights with the other kid, he looked her in the eye and said rather miserably, "Miss Stacy, I just want him to die someday so I can be left alone." Another time, a 7-year-old kid cheerfully told her he wished her husband would die so he could marry her because he loved her. She laughed but said it seriously weirded her out and she had to scold him. I'm not a teacher, but over the summer I had an internship at a youth shelter. One of the kids asked me if my boyfriend was Mexican. I was told by my supervisor to not even disclose my relationship status, so I don't even know how she figured out I had a boyfriend. I replied, "Not that it's any of your business, but no, he's white." "Why?" "Because you look like a tortilla." I was confused for a minute, but then I realized that I am very pale with freckles, like a flour tortilla. I had to stifle a giggle while I told her that we don't make negative comments about people's appearances. Not a teacher, but was a peer mediator in 5th grade. I was paired up with a girl from my class, and we were mediating 1st grade recess. One of the teachers yelled for us to come over and deal with the situation. We get over there and it's 2 girls, and one says she called me a bad word. The other girl looks at her and says, "No, I didn't. I called you a B," in the most nonchalant tone. Being me, I started laughing really hard and didn't really do anything to help the situation. My partner leaned down and goes, "Okay sweetie, that's a bad word, and you can't say that." My son had a nanny while we lived in China and we were going to dinner one night. She had a bad cough and was a regular smoker. She knew not to smoke near my son. She is coughing and coughing. He's 4. I say, "Wow, that cough is really bad. Maybe stop smoking for a bit or something." My son then chimes in nonchalantly, "You are going to die." I am so shocked and tell him it's not okay to tell people that. She responds in her wonderful thick Mandarin accent, "Okay, if I die, do you think I will go to heaven or heck my son just go to a doctor?" I work with children who speak English as an additional language. One boy said, "Oh, this is crap," and I begin to tell him off. "You can't say words like that. They aren't respectful or safe, etc." And he interrupts me in my language. Crap means bad or rubbish. Like if it doesn't work, I pause and think for a second because it could be true, and before I respond he says, "My dad says it all the time when his football team are losing. Manchester United are so crap." I realize that the dad is speaking in his home language but using English swear words and explain to the boy that it isn't Slovakian but an English swear word. 2 boys, 10-year-olds, did a lip sync battle at a holiday celebration. Did a love duet wherein one of them was in drag and the other mimed a proposal. If either of them are gay they aren't open. A kid was giving one of them crap for it. Kid was saying stuff like, "When's the wedding day, huh? When are you two getting gay married?" The kid turned and just casually says, "Why would you care? You're not freaking invited." One of the quickest and funniest comebacks I've ever heard in this from a little kid. For clarity, I got the first kid in trouble obviously, but then the principal, who I sent the first kid to, found out the second kid swore in his rebuttal and I had to get him in trouble too. Not a teacher, going to be, but the best teacher crack up I saw was in my programming class. We didn't have a textbook because I'm old and I don't know if they even made an official programming curriculum back then. Our class was basically stick the spurgs in a corner somewhere and call it an art credit, but I digress. So my buddy has been drawing something while the teacher lectures, and he shows it to the person next to him who stifles a sharp chortle. So now that the guy on the other side wants to see, so he shows it to him. Same thing. It quickly makes its way around the room and has started a giggle feedback loop. Every time a few people manage to stop their classmates set them off again. Finally, our teacher turns around. "All right, what the heck is so funny? Do I have something on my butt?" She was cool. Class goes from giggling to laughing, and someone points at the artist. She starts to walk over and he stands up, proffering his pad of graphing paper like it's a holy text. She takes it and sees 2 gigantic V-dongs with big googly eyes passionately intertwined. If you have seen The Wall, it was like the flower scene, captioned, "How the dinosaurs really went extinct," written in calligraphy. She tried to stifle the laughter but it came on so strongly that she ended up puffing up her cheeks and bugging her eyes out, like she was doing a spit take without any liquid. The room exploded. People were literally ruffling. She ended class early because we collectively, herself included, could not recover. The teacher in question was leaving for a graduate program so she had no fricks to give. No punishment was given. I would have asked to keep it and had it framed. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.